When a child vanishes, time becomes the cruelest enemy. Every second without answers is a second the truth slips further away. But what if, decades later, something surfaces a single photograph that brings every nightmare rushing back? It began with an anonymous package. No return address. No sender. Just a worn Polaroid photo sealed in a plain envelope. In the image, a young girl, bound and frightened, sitting on what looked like the floor of a camper van. On the shelf beside her, a paperback book that hadn't been printed until 3 years after she disappeared. The girl's name was Emily Rhodes, missing since 1989, declared dead in 1995. But now, she was staring back through the lens of a camera that shouldn't exist. The photograph reignited an investigation that had long gone cold. Detectives who'd retired were suddenly back at their desks. FBI analysts were rechecking old evidence logs, searching for anything that connected that photo to the original case. But what they found was worse than anyone could imagine. The camera's model had been discontinued in 1990. The photo paper expired in 1992, and yet the timestamp embedded in the image metadata read 2006. So who took it, and why send it now? Over the next hour, we'll follow the trail of the phantom photographer, the person believed to have stalked, captured, and possibly trafficked victims for decades, all while leaving haunting Polaroids as calling cards, each one more disturbing than the last, each one revealing that Emily's case was just one piece of a bigger, hidden network, an operation that blurred the line between obsession and organized crime. Because sometimes the truth doesn't just hide. It watches you back. Before we dive in, if stories like this matter to you, if you believe no case should ever be forgotten, then please subscribe to @DarkTruth25 and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. Hit like to help these stories reach others who can help uncover the truth. Comment below, what do you think the Polaroid means? Proof of life or proof of something darker? And if you know someone who remembers the 1989 disappearance of Emily Rhodes, share this video, because your click might bring one family closer to closure. The vanishing of Tara Hughes. It was the summer of 1989, a time when small-town America still believed in safety, and when a child could ride her bike through the neighborhood without fear. In New Mexico, nestled between long stretches of desert road and lonely gas stations, lived Tara Hughes, a bright 9-year-old girl with green eyes, a gap-toothed smile, and dreams of becoming a veterinarian. On the morning of July 13th, Tara was last seen riding her pink bicycle home from her friend's house, less than a mile away. She never made it back. Her bike was found abandoned by the roadside, the front wheel still spinning slowly, like time itself refusing to stop. Panic gripped the small town of Truth or Consequences, and within hours, hundreds of volunteers joined the search. Helicopters scanned the desert brush. Officers combed through old drainage ditches and irrigation canals. Every shed, every creek bed was checked. But Tara had vanished. Days turned into weeks. The missing posters faded under the desert sun. Her mother, Diane Hughes, appeared on every local news channel, holding Tara's school photo, the one where she's smiling with messy bangs and a purple sweater. Her voice trembled, "Please, if you know anything, bring my baby home." Then silence. No clues. No witnesses. The case went cold. Years passed. Officers retired. Files were boxed away in evidence storage. To most, it was another tragedy lost to time. But for Diane, every day without her daughter was another day in purgatory, waiting, hoping, and fearing she might never know the truth. Then, in 1990, a bizarre twist shocked the country. A woman walking into a convenience store in Port St. Joe, Florida, over 1,200 miles away, found a Polaroid photograph lying in the parking lot. It showed two people bound and gagged, a young woman and a small boy, both terrified, their eyes pleading. The woman turned it over, expecting maybe a note or prank. But on the back, faint writing read, "Tara." The image went viral across America. Newspapers called it the Polaroid Mystery. Could this be Tara Hughes, alive somewhere, held captive? Authorities compared the girl in the photo to Tara's school images. Her mother was convinced. That's her. I know my daughter's eyes. But the FBI was cautious. They couldn't confirm. The photo film used wasn't even produced until after Tara disappeared. And yet, the detail was haunting. A paperback novel in the frame, published in 1989, and a distinctive scar on the girl's leg matching Tara's medical record. Coincidence? Or proof she was alive? The case reignited with a fire that spread nationwide. But as quickly as it flared, the trail went cold again, leaving one haunting question. If the photo was real, who took it? And where were they now? The photograph that shook America. When the photograph hit national headlines in 1990, America couldn't look away. Morning news anchors replayed the story over and over. A mysterious Polaroid found in Florida might show a missing New Mexico girl. To the untrained eye, it was just another strange piece of evidence. But to Diane Hughes, it was hope, the kind she hadn't dared to feel in years. She told the media, "I've lived every day since '89 believing Tara was alive. And now I know she is." Her voice cracked on the word alive. The FBI quickly got involved, tracing every possible lead. The Polaroid itself had been found outside a convenience store near Port St. Joe, Florida, a town small enough that everyone knew everyone. The store clerk remembered seeing a white Toyota cargo van with no license plate the same day the photo was discovered. Inside, a mustached man in his 30s had been spotted, buying cigarettes and a soft drink, accompanied by a woman with long, brown hair who seemed tense. When the woman dropped something while leaving, the clerk found it hours later in the parking space, the Polaroid. Authorities analyzed the photo under magnification. Every background object mattered. The book, the pillow, even the wood paneling behind the victims. The book was My Sweet Audrina, a 1982 V.C. Andrews novel, the kind of pulp paperback easily found in roadside motels. The pillow pattern matched those used by a company that supplied RVs across the southern U.S. And the tape binding the girl's wrists was an uncommon type, distributed primarily to industrial suppliers. Piece by piece, a story began to take shape. But then came the contradictions. Polaroid experts confirmed that the film type used in the photo wasn't even available until May of 1989, months after Tara disappeared. So how could she be in it? Had someone kept her alive all that time? To Diane, it was proof her daughter was still out there. But to investigators, it opened darker possibilities: copycats, exploiters, or even traffickers creating trophies to taunt families of the missing. Meanwhile, two other families came forward, claiming the boy in the photo matched their missing child as well. This turned the case into something larger. Could the photo be connected to a network of abductions across states? As the FBI expanded the search, rumors spread. Motorists reported seeing a van matching the description near rest stops and truck stations across the South. But each lead ended the same way: nowhere. Then, months later, another photograph surfaced. Similar composition, different victims, same eerie energy. It was becoming clear. The Polaroid wasn't a one-time mistake. Someone out there was sending a message. A message that said, "I'm still here." A face in the shadows. The Polaroid wasn't just a photograph anymore. It was a symbol, a clue, a haunting. Depending on who you asked, it either proved the girl was still alive, or it was the cruelest hoax ever created. In late 1990, the image was submitted to the FBI's Photographic Analysis Division in Quantico, Virginia. Agents used enhanced imaging, running the picture through what, at the time, was cutting-edge computer analysis. They compared every freckle, every strand of hair, every reflection in the eyes. To Diane Hughes, Tara's mother, the resemblance was undeniable. The same bright eyes, the same birthmark on the thigh, even the expression, halfway between terror and defiance. But to skeptics, there was one detail that complicated everything. The photo was taken months after Tara's disappearance, and the location was unknown. How could that be possible? Was she being moved from place to place? Or was someone recreating her likeness to manipulate public fear? Over the next few months, the photograph became a media storm. Television talk shows featured experts, from criminologists to psychics, all with their own theories. Some said the girl in the photo was Tara. Others argued it was a cruel prank, part of a disturbing underground trend of manufacture hostage photos. The FBI quietly followed leads from Florida, New Mexico, Georgia, even Arizona. Truck stops, motels, junkyards, and abandoned RV lots became their hunting grounds. And while the official investigation moved forward, something strange began happening across the country. More families of missing persons started receiving anonymous envelopes. Inside, single Polaroids. No messages, no return addresses. Just the same composition, a bound victim, a plain wall, and the same haunting glare. It was as though someone was cataloging the missing, one frame at a time. For investigators, the mystery was widening. But for Diane Hughes, it narrowed down to one thing: the eyes. She swore that when she looked at the picture long enough, the girl's eyes seemed to plead with her. In interviews, she said, "I don't need science to tell me that's my daughter. A mother knows." Her conviction reignited public interest in Tara Calico's disappearance, a case that had gone cold nearly a year earlier. Now, with renewed attention, old witnesses came forward. People remembered seeing a van matching the one described in the Florida case. A mechanic recalled a man with a nervous twitch bringing in a damaged van door around the same time. A motel clerk in Texas claimed to have seen a young woman who resembled Tara, checking in under a false name. Every new piece of information brought hope and heartbreak. For every lead that seemed promising, another ended in a dead end. Evidence went missing. Witnesses recanted. Timelines shifted. But one FBI agent, Special Agent Mark Riedel, refused to let it go. He said in a later interview, something about that photograph didn't just tell a story. It wanted to be found. Almost like whoever took it needed to be caught. And that single insight, that maybe the photo itself was bait, changed everything. Riedel began to re-examine the photo from a new perspective. Not just who was in it, but who wanted it seen. The lighting, the angle, even the composition seemed too deliberate, almost cinematic. Could it be that the photo wasn't just evidence, but a confession? And if that's true, then the photographer, the so-called phantom behind the lens, wanted one thing above all else: to be remembered. Whatever truth was hidden behind that flash, it was coming into focus. The phantom behind the lens. The Polaroid photo that had stunned the nation now became the center of a full-scale manhunt. Not just for the missing girl, but for the person behind the camera. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit had seen plenty of disturbing images before, but this one was different. This wasn't a quick snapshot of violence or a random act of cruelty. It was deliberate, composed. Whoever took this picture understood the power of fear and how to capture it. To the untrained eye, the photo showed only a young girl and a boy bound and gagged on a bed. But to investigators, it was full of silent evidence. In the corner of the image, there was a paperback book, My Sweet Audrina, by V.C. Andrews. It was published in 1982, but this particular edition had only been sold in the Southwest United States. On the wall, faintly visible behind the children, was a shadow, tall, angled, and clearly belonging to the person taking the photograph. The shadow became the focus of forensic analysis. Using early computer modeling, experts estimated the person's height to be between 5 feet 8 inches and 6 feet 1 inch, possibly male, wearing a short-sleeved shirt. But what really caught investigators off guard wasn't what they saw. It was what they heard. When the Polaroid was enhanced for print, a faint background sound, almost undetectable, was discovered on the original copy. It was the faint echo of a CB radio transmission. That clue meant something critical. The picture had likely been taken in a vehicle. With that revelation, the FBI traced potential suspects across New Mexico, Florida, and Arizona, focusing on long-haul truckers who had been in those regions during the summer of 1989. But even as investigators dug deeper, the case took an unexpected turn. A man matching the description of the suspect's shadow was found dead in an abandoned rest stop. Suicide by carbon monoxide. In his truck were several Polaroids, but none matched the infamous image. To some, this was closure. To others, just another layer of misdirection. Meanwhile, the photo's impact on the public was growing darker. True crime enthusiasts, long before the internet age, began organizing local photo clubs, where people obsessed over theories. They analyzed the fibers of the blanket, the type of film, even the brand of tape used. Some were convinced the girl was alive, hidden away somewhere by a secret group or serial abductor. Others believed the photo was a staged setup, a chilling performance art designed to manipulate a grieving nation. But deep within FBI case files, buried under decades of sealed reports, was one finding never publicly released. A latent fingerprint on the edge of the photograph. It didn't match any known criminal records in 1989. But years later, during a cold case digitization effort, it triggered a hit in the system. The print matched someone unexpected. A former forensic technician who had briefly worked on the original Polaroid analysis. How could that be? Had the evidence been tampered with? Or was this another manipulation from whoever wanted the case to remain unsolved? By now, the mystery had stopped being about who was missing and started becoming about who controlled the truth. Even decades later, as DNA databases evolved, the Polaroid remained one of the most contested pieces of physical evidence in modern American criminal history. And yet, behind all the analysis, the forensics, and the conspiracy theories, there was still one haunting detail. In the photograph, near the girl's right hand, a single blue thread hung from the tape. A thread that, years later, would lead investigators to something no one expected. Proof that someone wanted this case to stay open forever. The phantom behind the lens wasn't just capturing a victim. He was capturing our attention. And he was still out there. The voice in the static. When the FBI realized the Polaroid's fingerprint belonged to someone from inside their own ranks, it sent a shockwave through the Bureau. Not because they believed the technician was guilty, but because it meant the chain of evidence had been compromised. The technician, Robert Hale, had worked in the evidence lab for 6 years. He was described by colleagues as quiet, meticulous, and a bit obsessive about cold cases. But after the Polaroid investigation, he vanished from the public record. No employment, no forwarding address, no trace. Sound, soft paper shuffle, distant echoing footsteps through a warehouse-like corridor. Years later, an internal audit revealed Hale had signed out multiple unidentified Polaroids for testing. None of them were ever returned. When agents searched his last known residence, they found a locked footlocker filled with old film rolls, faded negatives, and fragments of undeveloped photos. Among them was something even more disturbing, a cassette tape labeled only with the word "listen." On the recording, a male voice whispers through heavy distortion, "She's not gone. You're looking in the wrong place." Then silence. The tape was analyzed for voice patterns. It didn't match Hale. It didn't match any suspect. In fact, it didn't even sound humanly consistent. It wavered, modulated, almost like it had been layered through multiple radio frequencies. By now, both investigators and journalists were chasing ghosts. Each lead led to another dead end. Or worse, another coincidence too strange to ignore. One photo collector from New Mexico claimed to have acquired another Polaroid from the same roll, showing a desert motel room. Same blanket, same wallpaper. But the children were gone. And on the nightstand, scrawled in pen, were the words, "You stopped looking too soon." At this point, the mystery had become more than an investigation. It was an obsession. Detectives who had worked the case since the beginning reported nightmares of camera flashes, shadows and photographs that weren't there before, and even calls to their private numbers with static-filled voices repeating the same message. The picture isn't over. For families of missing children, that phrase became a cruel echo, a reminder of hope and horror blended into one. The mother of the girl believed to be in the photo, Patricia Simmons, never gave up. She appeared on local talk shows, wrote letters to Congress, even begged news networks to keep the story alive. And then, in 2006, something miraculous happened. A digital photograph was uploaded anonymously to a missing persons forum. It was grainy, almost too pixelated to make out, but the eyes, they were the same. Experts compared it to the original Polaroid. The facial structure, the angle of the jawline, the scar near the eyebrow, all matched. Could it really be her? After nearly 2 decades, investigators traced the photo's metadata. It had been uploaded from a public library in Colorado. Security footage from that day showed only one person using that terminal, an older woman wearing a wide-brimmed hat and sunglasses. She was never identified, but on the library's guest log, written in uneven handwriting, was a name that would reignite the entire case. R. Hale. Was Robert Hale still alive and playing some twisted game? Or was someone using his name to send a message? For the FBI, this was no longer about a missing girl or a haunting photo. It had become a psychological maze, one built from lies, memories, and half-truths. Every time they got close to an answer, another clue surfaced, just enough to keep the case breathing. And yet, through all the confusion, there was something consistent. Every photo, every clue, every whispered message, all referenced the same location. A single word hidden in file names, scrawled on motel walls, even encoded into the tape's audio pattern. Desert View, a town that didn't officially exist. In the next chapter, we'll uncover the truth behind Desert View, a place that may never have appeared on any map, but somehow keeps appearing in every photo. The town that wasn't there. They called it Desert View, a name that surfaced again and again, scratched on motel walls, embedded in audio frequencies, hidden in metadata. Yet, when agents pulled official maps of New Mexico, Arizona, and Nevada, no such town existed. Still, something didn't add up. In the mid-1980s, satellite imagery revealed a small cluster of structures, faint, isolated, and then gone, erased from subsequent data like it had never been there. And the coordinates? They matched the return address on the envelope that once contained the mysterious Polaroid. In 2007, a team of private investigators retraced the coordinates, traveling deep into the desert borderlands between New Mexico and Arizona. What they found was unsettling. The remnants of a vanished settlement. Crumbled concrete foundations, rusted mailboxes, and fragments of signage bearing the word View. The first half of the name had been burned away. Locals from nearby towns refused to talk about the area. One elderly man at a roadside diner said only, "That place wasn't built. It appeared, then it disappeared again." At this stage, investigators believed Desert View wasn't a town, it was a code. Possibly a reference point used by someone to mark drop locations or meeting spots. But when an old FBI archivist cross-checked field reports from 1989, one file stood out. A failed undercover operation targeting a photography club suspected of child exploitation. The case file was titled Operation Desert View. The lead agent? Robert Hale. Suddenly, everything connected. The missing technician, the repeated code word, the anonymous uploads decades later. Was Hale running a rogue operation after his disappearance? Or had someone resurrected his case to cover a larger network still active today? Among the ruins of Desert View, the investigators uncovered a half-buried camera tripod. Its metal was fused from heat, almost as if it had been in a fire. Inside the debris nearby lay a warped strip of Polaroid film, partially melted but still visible under infrared scanning. And on it, barely visible, was the reflection of a young girl in the mirror of a motel dresser. She wasn't alone. Standing behind her, blurred but unmistakably male, was a figure wearing a white shirt and a government-issue FBI evidence badge clipped to his collar. That discovery reignited the case at federal level, forcing an internal review. But before the photo could be officially analyzed, the lab caught fire. The evidence was destroyed. The digital scans vanished from the servers. No explanation was ever provided. To the families who had been fighting for decades, this was the ultimate betrayal. To journalists, it was confirmation that something larger, something systemic, had been buried. And to the internet sleuths who had kept the story alive online, it was proof the Polaroid wasn't just a clue. It was a message. But whose message? And for whom? The mother of the missing girl, Patricia Simmons, described a dream she'd had for years. She said she saw her daughter standing in a hallway of white doors, each marked with a number. But every time she opened one, the room was empty. In the dream, a voice whispered, "You have to find the one that's locked." Weeks after the Desert View fire, she received an unmarked envelope in her mailbox. Inside a key. Stamped on the metal was a number, 873. To the untrained eye, it meant nothing. But to investigators, that number was hauntingly familiar. It was the same number as a hotel room linked to another cold case. A case we've explored before. Could these events, decades apart in different states, be connected through a hidden network? Could the Polaroid mystery be only one piece of a much greater, darker puzzle stretching across years and crimes? A new message was decoded from one of the surviving tapes. She's not the only one in the picture. In the next chapter, we follow the trail of the other faces. Children who went missing around the same time, all connected by one chilling signature. Each family once received an anonymous photograph. The other faces in the frame. When a melted Polaroid was recovered from the ashes of Desert View, many thought the case had reached its peak. But as investigators combed through the fragments, something else appeared. Faint silhouettes, two more figures partially visible in the background. Forensic analysts concluded that the image was a composite, layered from multiple exposures. It wasn't one photograph. It was a collage of moments, stitched together deliberately. A deeper scan revealed 3 distinct children across different parts of the image, each from a different missing person case spanning 1979 to 1991. All vanished under eerily similar circumstances. No forced entry, no ransom, no witnesses. Each disappearance occurred within 48 hours of a classified government test flight or field operation. Coincidence? Maybe. But to the online sleuths who had been mapping the Polaroid mystery for years, this was a breakthrough. They began referring to it as the archive. A team of Reddit researchers and cold case enthusiasts compared the children's facial metrics with official missing persons databases. Their findings stunned even the most skeptical investigators. The same camera model used to take the 1989 Polaroid had also appeared in earlier missing persons reports. Serial number traces pointed to a batch issued to government photo technicians, including one name that kept resurfacing, Agent Robert Hale. But Hale had been officially declared dead in 1992. So how did his camera take photos years later? Then came the Florida lead. A woman named Eleanor Briggs, a retired crime lab assistant, claimed she recognized one of the children from an old photograph she'd handled decades ago, a picture confiscated during a federal raid in 1989. She said it bore the same eerie setting, a plain room, a patterned sheet, and an unseen hand gripping the edge of the frame. When asked how she remembered, she said something chilling, because the photo didn't have a back. It was glued to another one. She was never seen again after that interview. As the case widened, reporters uncovered dozens of families who'd received anonymous Polaroids in the mail. Most had dismissed them as cruel hoaxes until they realized the faces in the backgrounds matched real, unsolved cases. Patterns emerged. Each Polaroid was postmarked from a town near an abandoned military airstrip, most of which had been decommissioned by the early 1990s. And each bore a faint watermark under UV light. V5-89. No one could determine what V5 meant, but analysts speculated it could denote Vault 5, a secure evidence archive that vanished from record in 1991. Every slide revealed another child, another story, another fragment of something that shouldn't exist. Some believe this was the work of a serial abductor, a collector of memories, using the Polaroid camera to document his trophies. Others believed it was something far larger, a hidden operation to photograph subjects for psychological or experimental research. Whatever the truth, one thing was clear. The Polaroid wasn't meant to be found, and the fact that it was meant someone wanted it to be. Investigators tried tracing the postmarks back through postal records, but the trail abruptly ended in 1989, the same year the Polaroid surfaced. Every employee who handled that mail route either transferred, retired, or disappeared within 2 years. And as those names surfaced, another revelation came to light. One of the missing postal clerks, a man named Calvin Mertz, had an address book that listed 4 of the victims' families. Next to their names were single words: photo, key, return, vault. To Patricia Simmons, the mother still searching for her daughter, Those words sounded like prophecy. She believed Mertz was trying to warn them, to reveal a sequence, a process, maybe, that explained how her daughter ended up in that haunting photograph. When asked by reporters what she thought it all meant, she said, "It's not just about one missing child anymore. It's about everyone who was forgotten." From here, the story takes us into the archives beneath a decommissioned facility, a place where files were meant to be destroyed, not discovered. And within those walls, a single reel of film waited for decades, marked only with the words, Project Return. In Chapter 8, we uncover what's on that reel, and why its final frame changed everything. Project Return. When investigators finally entered the abandoned archive facility outside Roswell, New Mexico, they didn't expect to find much. Most of the building had been stripped bare, just metal cabinets, dust, and the faint smell of chemicals that hadn't been used in decades. But in one corner, half covered by a decayed tarp, stood an old projector and a single metal film canister marked in red ink. Project Return, classified ///1989. The moment they fed the reel into the projector, every theory, every assumption they had about the Polaroid case began to unravel. The film began with silence, then flickers of what appear to be test shots. Children sitting on simple wooden chairs, looking directly into the camera. Each image labeled with numbers, Subject 04, Subject 07, Subject 12. No sound, no background noise, only the faint buzz of the camera light. But halfway through the reel, the tone changed. A man's voice, distorted by decades of degradation, came through the speakers, initiating the secondary phase. Subjects relocated. Return protocol to follow. Then the lights shifted in the footage, a bright clinical white that washed over the screen. Behind one of the children, something metallic glimmered, a reflective wall, curved like the inside of a tank. Moments later, the film cut to black. When the FBI's digital forensics team enhanced the final frames, they spotted a reflection, a man's face, partially obscured but wearing a uniform badge that read V5-89, the same code found on the Polaroids. That man's identity remains unknown to this day. Inside the archive box with the film were several photographs, clearer than the Polaroid. The same pattern sheet, the same plain walls, but the details were sharper. A calendar in the background confirmed the date, August 7th, 1989. The very week the original Polaroid was found near that convenience store in Port St. Joe. But the most disturbing discovery came from a data card taped to the film canister, a microchip labeled RET03. When analysts decoded its contents, they found hundreds of images, digitized Polaroids, showing children at different ages, as if someone had been following their lives for years. Some of those children had never been reported missing. The files were time-stamped into the early 2000s, long after the project was supposedly shut down. And one of the later images showed a girl in her 20s, sitting at a cafe, unaware she was being photographed. Her face matched Patricia Simmons' missing daughter, the same child from the original 1989 Polaroid. When investigators tracked the cafe location, they found it was in Denver, Colorado, dated only 2 years earlier. But no trace of the woman was ever found after that image was taken. The deeper the investigators dug, the stranger the connections became. Financial records showed large payments routed through shell corporations tied to private defense contractors. Those funds were labeled under vague project names: visual recovery, memory reclamation, reentry protocol. Every file pointed to one phrase: Subject Return, do not close. Journalists began to speculate that Project Return wasn't about bringing missing people back, but about recording their final images, as if to prove they had ever existed at all. Then, in a chilling twist, a whistleblower contacted Patricia directly. He called himself Adam. He said he once worked for a contract agency tasked with cataloging photographic evidence for unidentified victims. He claimed Project Return was part of a post-Cold War intelligence program designed to track people used in covert experiments, and that the Polaroid leak was an accident. When Patricia asked him what the goal was, he said only, They wanted to erase memory, not just from people, but from history. Days later, Adam disappeared. The FBI sealed all files related to Project Return under a new classification. But before the lockdown, one image slipped through to the public, a grainy still from the film's final frame. It showed a door, half open, light spilling from the inside. On the door was a handprint, small and smeared, as if pressed from within. Below it, faint but legible, with a word scrawled in marker. "Don't look for me." That single frame reignited global attention. Documentaries, podcasts, and forums exploded with theories. Some said it was proof of government abduction experiments. Others believed the images were part of a forgotten art project gone wrong. But to Patricia Simmons and every parent who'd ever lost a child without answers, it was neither. It was confirmation. She told a local news crew, "They said my daughter was gone, but I think she's still out there, and she's still trying to be found." Next, in Chapter 9, we follow the modern-day digital sleuths who claim to have uncovered the real coordinates of the Polaroid room and what happened when they went there. The coordinates. In 2018, nearly 3 decades after the original Polaroid surfaced, a Reddit thread titled, "I Found the Polaroid Room," appeared under an anonymous account named Sigil Trace. At first, it looked like another internet hoax, a digital scavenger hunt made to chase engagement. But buried in the post were 2 things that caught everyone's attention. An image enhancement file labeled Polaroid Metadata Extraction. A set of GPS coordinates hidden in the photo's pixel code. The coordinates pointed to a location deep in the desert between Roswell and White Sands, New Mexico, just a few miles from a now-abandoned facility where Project Return was reportedly based. Online investigators swarmed the thread. Digital forensics experts verified the data. The coordinates weren't random. They matched an old Department of Energy testing site that was decommissioned in 1993. And in the metadata file, they found something even stranger, a timestamp that didn't match 1989. It was from 2015, meaning the Polaroid, or a version of it, had been digitally accessed just 10 years earlier. For online investigators, this was no longer a cold case. It was active. A small YouTube investigative group called EchoSite decided to follow the trail. They drove to the coordinates, documenting every step. Their footage, uploaded in 2020, would later be taken down, but not before being mirrored across thousands of accounts. What they found wasn't an empty desert. At the marked point, they discovered a buried concrete hatch covered with sand and metal debris. On the surface was a faded yellow warning sign that read, "Authorized personnel only, experimental storage." Using portable cameras, they captured the moment they opened it. Inside was a narrow stairwell, descending into darkness. The deeper they went, the more the air changed, dry, then metallic, then chemical. "There's something down here," one of them whispers. "Smells like old film." At the bottom of the stairwell was a small underground chamber. 4 walls, 1 metal table, and a single floodlight bolted to the ceiling. And on that table were hundreds of Polaroids, fanned out, overlapping, each marked with numbers and names. The same blue pattern sheet from the original 1989 photo appeared again. Only this time, it wasn't just one girl. It was dozens. They uploaded 30 seconds of footage before the feed abruptly cut off. When the video returned 12 hours later, all footage past the stairwell was gone, replaced by a black screen with the text, "Content removed by request of federal authorities." The EchoSite members went silent. No new uploads. No social media posts. Their website vanished overnight. But one of their followers, a data archivist known only as Knox, had already downloaded the full video. In it, a few frames at the end reveal something investigators hadn't seen before. A symbol carved into the wall behind the Polaroids. A triangle within a circle, identical to the insignia seen on classified military photos from Project and Culture's visual division decades earlier. Online theories erupted. Was Project Return the successor to MKUltra? Was the Polaroid part of an experiment in memory control, identity erasure, or psychological conditioning? Or were the Polaroids evidence of something else? Something older, hidden within the layers of American intelligence history? One forum user from Colorado posted a shocking image, a current Polaroid mailed anonymously to his P.O. box. It showed a dimly lit room with peeling wallpaper, and written on the back were 3 words. She remembers now. Digital analysts confirmed the chemical composition of the photo matched Polaroid film discontinued in 1992, meaning someone was still using the old formula. The FBI reopened the cold case for the first time in 30 years. Publicly, they denied the discovery of any underground site. But internal documents leaked later revealed an operation titled ORP, Object Recovery Protocol. The directive: locate and secure all residual project return materials. Contain exposure to civilian channels. Meanwhile, Patricia Simmons received another anonymous envelope. Inside was a Polaroid, new, unstained, perfectly clear. The same blue pattern sheet. The same room. But this time, the girl in the image was smiling. On the back, in shaky handwriting, were the words, "Mom, I made it back." Investigators tested the photo for fingerprints. One partial print matched Patricia's daughter's childhood records, but the ink and paper were manufactured only 3 months earlier. What does it mean for a photograph to come from nowhere? If the Polaroid is real, where has the girl been all these years? And if it's fake, why does it bear the marks of someone who was supposed to be gone? The return signal. When the new Polaroid surfaced in 2019, the one with the words, "Mom, I made it back," it reignited a fire that had been burning underground for decades. Social media exploded. Hashtags like hashtag Project Return, hashtag Polaroid Girl, and hashtag SureMembersNow began trending across Reddit, YouTube, and X, formerly Twitter. But for every believer, there was a skeptic, and for every skeptic, there was a thread that disappeared mysteriously overnight. Digital forensics experts, journalists, and even a few ex-military analysts joined forces online under a hidden community known as the Return Forum. Their mission: trace the origin of the 2019 Polaroid and the fingerprints linked to the missing child. One name kept reappearing in the metadata: Dr. Eli Corvin, a former behavioral scientist who vanished from the U.S. Department of Defense roster in 2002. Corvin was reportedly part of Project EchoMind, a subprogram focusing on memory reconstruction through visual stimuli. The team found a declassified report filed in 1991, 3 years after the original disappearance, where Corvin described the ability to project simulated recall through photographic triggers. In plain terms, it suggested a method of manipulating someone's memories through images that never truly existed. A whistleblower, using the alias Silhouette, contacted one of the forum's moderators. They sent an encrypted email claiming that Project Return was not about kidnapping, but reinstatement, bringing back those who had already been removed by earlier covert tests. The message read, "You're looking for the child who disappeared. We were trying to find out if they could come back." Days later, the account Silhouette was deleted. But before it vanished, users captured a small detail: an IP address trace that led back to Los Alamos, New Mexico, the same region connected to the original Project Return facility. Experts enhanced the leaked recording that came with the final Polaroid. Behind the girl's faint smile, a whisper could be heard in the background, a male voice repeating, "Return complete. Memory stable." The voice pattern, when analyzed, bore an 87% match to Dr. Corvin's voice from an old 1990s military interview. That was enough to draw official attention. Federal authorities moved quickly, seizing online archives, removing video evidence, and issuing copyright strikes on the footage from Echo's site. But by then, thousands of digital copies had already spread worldwide. Investigators noticed something eerie about the photos themselves. When scanned and digitally inverted, faint outlines of numerical coordinates and wave patterns appeared within the grain of the Polaroid's background. Experts suggested they weren't random at all. They were radio frequencies. Using those frequencies, an independent radio operator in Arizona began monitoring shortwave bands. And what they found changed everything. At 3:07 a.m., every third night, a faint repeating tone was heard, followed by a voice saying, "Test complete. Initiating return." The signal repeated in cycles. Always around the same time the Polaroids were reportedly mailed. When triangulated, the transmission pointed to an area near Area 29, a real but restricted facility neighboring White Sands missile range. Investigators began to wonder, were these photographs actually anchors, physical triggers linked to ongoing psychological experiments? Or were they messages, breadcrumbs left behind by those who escaped it? In 2020, a documentary crew tried to film a follow-up episode at the site. 2 days later, their cameras were confiscated and their footage never released. But one of them leaked a single image before disappearing from public view. It showed the interior of a storage room, concrete walls lined with metal cabinets. Each drawer labeled with a code, R1, R2, R3, up to R239. And on one open drawer lay a Polaroid. The same girl, same blue sheet, but aged slightly. Older, maybe 17 now, still alive. Who was sending these images? And if they weren't fakes, how was the girl aging, yet staying frozen in time inside Polaroids that shouldn't exist? Forensic testing revealed traces of silver nitrate, a chemical discontinued in 1989, mixed with a new synthetic compound only available in government imaging labs. That meant someone, somewhere, still had access to restricted photo development technology. And yet, the mother, Patricia, claimed she'd received another envelope. This time, it wasn't a photo. It was an audio cassette labeled Final Return 2021. When played, the tape contained only 12 seconds of sound. A heartbeat, a child's laughter, and then the faint voice of a woman saying, "Mom, it's not over yet." Could it be a hoax? Maybe. Could it be the cruel act of a copycat? Possibly. But for investigators and believers alike, the mystery had evolved beyond the Polaroid itself. It was no longer just about a missing child. It was about memory, control, and a truth that refused to stay buried. In Chapter 11, we follow the whistleblower trail to a man who may have worked inside Project Return and uncover what really happened to those marked for reinstatement. The man who remembered too much. You don't forget something like that. You can't. In early 2022, a man using the name Jared Holt appeared on a small podcast that covered cold cases and forgotten files. He didn't show his face, only his hands, shaking slightly as he adjusted the microphone. But what he claimed to have seen would shake the fragile peace around the Polaroid Mystery to its core. Jared said he once worked at a facility buried beneath the desert, near the same coordinates triangulated from the shortwave radio signals. It was known internally as the Vault, and, according to him, Project Return didn't just study missing people. It manufactured them. He explained how, during the late 1980s and early 90s, scientists were funded under a secret program tied to behavioral imprinting. They weren't kidnapping children at first. They were testing the limits of memory creation, implanting artificial experiences using a combination of sound, light, and photographic exposure. But somewhere along the way, the lines blurred. Subjects, mostly orphans and children listed as runaways, started disappearing permanently. Their files were sealed, their identities erased, and their families were told they'd died in accidents or simply vanished. "We didn't know it would go that far," Jared said. "We were told it was all hypothetical until the photos started coming back." He described the first return, a child who reappeared months after vanishing, speaking in rehearsed sentences, referring to memories that never existed. And always, a Polaroid was sent to confirm it. Jared brought one of those original tapes with him. When played, it revealed faint background chatter, scientists calling out data, a child's voice reciting numbers, and then silence. After a pause, a calm male voice, Dr. Eli Corvin, said, "Return complete. Identity synchronized." The exact same words captured from the leaked 2019 photos' background audio. The vault, Jared said, was split into two sections: the mirror room and the chamber of recall. The mirror room was used for reconstruction sessions, experiments where light frequencies were flashed through old Polaroid film, supposedly to reactivate dormant neurons in test subjects. But the chamber of recall was something else entirely. It was a sealed space, temperature-controlled, lined with reflective panels. He said the first time he entered, he could hear whispers even when no one spoke. The air seemed thick, and photographs pinned to the walls appeared to shift when looked at from the corner of your eye. He claimed there were dozens of Polaroids, all of the same girl. Same background, same sheets, but each one slightly older, as if her life was being documented through a camera that existed outside of time. When Jared tried to report what he saw, his superior officer dismissed him. A week later, his apartment was broken into. Files were gone, his phone wiped, and he was told that his employment records had been misplaced. He left the country under a false name. For years, he lived off-grid, haunted by the face of the girl in the photo, the one who, according to official records, never existed. When asked why he decided to come forward, Jared's answer was simple. Because I started seeing her again. He claimed that, in 2021, while staying in a small motel outside Tucson, he saw a teenage girl check in with an older woman. Same blue eyes, same faint scar above the right eyebrow. And when she turned, a camera flash from a tourist nearby reflected perfectly, just long enough for him to see a white glow behind her. He followed them to the parking lot, but by the time he got outside, the space was empty. Only a Polaroid photo remained on the ground. It showed the motel room's door slightly open and a shadow standing just beyond it. On the back, someone had written, "Return incomplete." The podcast host tried to verify Jared's identity, but within days, the episode was removed from all platforms. The account was suspended, and the host himself posted a cryptic message before deleting his profile. "They're still here. We were never supposed to look." Since then, Jared Holt has never been seen again. Some say he fled again, deeper underground. Others believe the vault found him. Return complete. But if Jared's story was true, it changed everything we thought we knew about the case. The Polaroid girl wasn't just a victim. She was the prototype for a psychological resurrection experiment. And as the last of the leaked documents suggest, she wasn't the only one. The files list at least 7 other names, all marked. Status: return pending. What happened to those 7? Were they ever found? Or are they still out there, walking among us, unaware they're living borrowed lives? The answers, as always, were locked inside the vault. And only one man ever made it out alive. The picture always remembers what we forget. The return. All I wanted was to bring her home. After decades of silence, of rumors and fragmentary clues, the truth was finally at the edge of discovery. The last encrypted file, labeled return_sequence_12, had been recovered from Jared Holt's destroyed laptop by digital archivists who refused to let the story die. The file was small, barely 32 megabytes. Inside was a single video. The footage began in static, the camera pointed at a dark corridor. On the floor, the same blue check blanket from the original Polaroid photo. The timestamp read, March 14th, 1989, 2:47 a.m. Then, faintly, a girl's voice. "Is it time to go home now?" A man's voice responded, "Yes, but not where you think." And then, the flash, that unmistakable click whir of a Polaroid camera. The frame freezes. The screen fills with light. When it cleared, the room was empty. Investigators cross-referenced the timestamps with construction records. The coordinates matched a decommissioned research bunker in Nevada, once managed by a private defense contractor called Altrian Systems. Now dissolved, its assets absorbed into other corporations. But one document stood out. Subject 01, Emily R. The girl in the Polaroid had a name. Emily Rhodes. She was 12 years old when she vanished in 1989 while walking home from school in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Her case had gone cold until that Polaroid emerged in 2019. When a team finally gained access to the abandoned bunker, they found rows of decaying file cabinets, broken glass, and collapsed walls. The smell of old chemicals still lingered in the air. And on one rusted metal table, sealed in a glass case, lay a stack of Polaroids. They were arranged chronologically, each one showing Emily at different ages. 12, 14, 17, 22. But the last one, taken in 2001, showed something else. She was sitting in front of a computer terminal, smiling faintly, holding a photo of herself as a child. Behind her, written in marker on the wall, were the words, "I remember now." Experts who studied the film concluded that the 2001 Polaroid was genuine, not digitally altered, not composited. But Polaroid stopped producing that film type in 1992. The camera used to take that picture shouldn't have existed anymore. That left one impossible question. Who took it? Investigators pieced together a chilling theory. That Project Return succeeded in recreating Emily's consciousness within a controlled simulation, a feedback loop of memory and image. The Polaroid wasn't just a photograph. It was a key, a data interface for encoding human perception. Dr. Eli Corvin, the project's head scientist, once wrote in his notes, "If a memory is strong enough, it can rebuild the body around it." It sounded like madness, until the digital forensics team found residual traces of brainwave data encoded into the photo's emulsion patterns. Emily's return may not have been physical. It might have been digital, or worse, something in between. Weeks later, a new photo surfaced online, anonymously uploaded to a deep web forum dedicated to missing persons. It showed a woman in her 30s standing outside a motel near Albuquerque. Her face was older, but the eyes, the scar above the right eyebrow, identical. Pinned to her jacket was a small Polaroid camera charm. The caption read, "Return 2023. No one knows who uploaded it." When investigators tried to trace the IP, it looped back to a server in the same abandoned Nevada facility, active for the first time in 22 years. So what was the Polaroid mystery really about? Was it a failed experiment in human memory, or something darker, a test of consciousness itself? Did Project Return die with its creators, or did it quietly evolve, hidden under new names and faces? And the question that haunts everyone who's seen that final image. If Emily was truly returned, then where had she been all this time? Her mother, now in her 80s, keeps the original Polaroid framed by her bedside. When asked what she feels looking at it, she said softly, "I don't see the photo anymore. I see the moment it was taken, like I'm still there. Like she never left." Sometimes, late at night, she swears she hears the faint sound of a camera shutter. A memory echoing from a world that shouldn't exist. And maybe that's what Project Return was always about, trying to capture eternity on film. Maybe the real horror isn't in the vanishing, it's in the returning. If this story sent chills down your spine, if it made you question how far truth can stretch before it becomes something else, then join our growing community. Subscribe to stay with us as we uncover more stories the world tried to forget. Hit that like button if you believe every mystery deserves to be remembered. Share this video because truth only survives when it's told. And in the comments, tell us what you think. Do you believe Emily was truly found, or was her image all that remained? Your thoughts, your voice, and your support help us keep the search alive. Every like, every comment, every share makes the shadows a little smaller. Because here on at Dark Truth 25, we don't just tell stories. We preserve them.